Kannst du das ausschalten? Hello, hello. Does anybody see me and hear me? Does everything work out? Let me know if you can hear me and see me in the chat. I already see Josie tuning in and Marianne and Kelvin. Mary is there. Great to see that so many of you are already there. Great, Mary can see and hear me. So yeah, so excited for tonight. Tonight we are going to, or like tonight, not sure what time it is at your place, but we are going to work on note reading and key signatures actually. And this is going to be quite theoretical. So it's going to be a little bit confusing maybe at times, or if you are already able to read notes very well, maybe some things are very logical to you already. But I really want to stress that anytime you feel confused, just let me know in the chat and I will explain it again. I am open to get to any stage possible tonight. I'm just going to fit as much as possible into the next 45 minutes, and we will just see how much we can learn in the next 45 minutes. So if you get confused in the middle, let me know just let me know in the chat anytime, and I will help you with all your questions, because it's important to me that everybody can follow it. And I know we all have different levels. So yeah, Mary just woke up and joined the lesson. Here in Germany, it's already getting quite dark, and it's also getting warm, even though it is so cold here, but not in our living room right now. So yeah, if all of you are ready to get started, let me know, because then I'm going to show you a little presentation that I created to make it a little bit more visual and a little bit easier to understand than just by explaining in front of the camera. So I'm going to take you there right now. I'm going to share my screen right now so you can see the presentation that I created. Okay. So it is all happening right now. Meanwhile, if you have any questions about the technical parts, you can always write in the chat, and Sasha is here to help you. And okay, so here's the presentation right now. Let's see, does this work? Yes, it seems to work, right? So everybody is now seeing the presentation. If not, just let me know in the chat. And now we get started with our lesson. Okay, so the lesson is called High Second or Low Second Finger, how to always know which notes to play with the help of key signatures. That's a very long title. So this lesson is about a very common issue I noticed in the group, or many people have asked me that. How do you know if you have to play a high second or a low second? If you I'm going to explain it in as much detail as possible within 45 minutes. And well, let's get started. So the first thing I wanted is to ask you a question, and that is, are you ever unsure which finger to play? Just let me know in the chat if you are ever unsure if you have to play a high second or a low second, or a high third or low third, that you're just playing a piece and just not sure if you are doing it the right way. Let me know if you are ever in this situation, or if you are in the situation where you are just so advanced already that you are always sure which tone to play. So I'm just waiting for comments coming in, and meanwhile I'm also welcoming Cindy. Hi, welcome to our lesson. There's also somebody that is anonymous that has been joining. Anonymous 5167. Welcome to our lesson. Yeah, let me know in the chat. So, one person says, just in third position, I am unsure which fingers to play. But in other position, it's going great. So that's actually a great sign. Maybe the lesson will be a little in the easy side for you, but still I think you're going to take away quite a lot from the second part of the lesson where we will talk about key signatures, because that also applies to third position. And Mary says, I'm a basics person, so I think I have an idea of what you're talking about, and I imagine I'll have issues with this sometimes. So yeah. And Cloud definitely also says, and Josie says, sometimes I'm unsure. So definitely many of us seem not to know that much about key signatures yet. Some are more advanced. So let's get started with step 1 to learn about key signatures. Actually, step 1 is a little pre-step, and that is that before you can learn key signatures, you actually have to know where to find the notes on the violin. For some of you, this will be really easy already, but for others, this will still be a big mystery. So let's have a look at all the notes. I'm going to give really like a summary of this, because I know for some of you this is too easy, and for some of you this is maybe a little bit, is still very confusing. So it's going to be a summary. And if this is just not working for you, if you don't understand it yet, there will also be a note course being published. There will be a note course published in the next year on the Academy. And there you can learn it into more detail. But right now I'm going to give you a quick overview. So here you see all the notes in first position on the violin. Over here to the left, you can see the G string. I'm not sure, can you actually also see my cursor? Let me know in the chat if you can see my cursor. Okay, Sasha says he can see my cursor, so probably you guys can see it too. So the G is all the way to the left, and this is the G string. And as you see, the notes are always going, you have to memorize one pattern when reading notes, and that is very easy: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All the notes are named either A, B, C, D, E, F, or G. And you can see that this pattern is continuing all the time. So it starts with A, then B, then C, D, E, F, G. And after that, it starts with A again, B, C, D, E, F, G. So do you see how there's a very logical pattern in the notes? And that each time if the little dot moves upward one line, it gets one note higher. So it starts at G. So that is under the line over here. Then you see on the line is A. Then above that line is B. Above that line, so here on the line again, is C. And there's also a fun thing you should notice is that actually the pattern is like this. It goes under the line, then it goes on the line, then between the lines, on the line, between the lines. Do you see that there's one dot that is between the lines all the time, and then there's one dot on the line? So that is how that is what the pattern of notes look like. If that, please let me know in the chat right now if this makes sense already for you. I think many of you already have learned something like this in the past. So let me know if this is understandable, because then we will move to the next step. Okay, I see some yeses. Makes sense, makes sense, Cindy says. Yeah, and some people say, yes, I'm not sure if that is related to this, but I feel it might be related to this. So it seems that this already makes sense for most of you. So let's go to the next step. So there's one little problem with this approach, because right now this makes perfect sense. But if I would just take all the letters away, it would be completely confusing. If I would just ask you randomly, what is this note, the note that I'm pointing to right now, and you wouldn't see that it's a G, it would be like, no idea. And it would be a lot of work to learn each specific note that I pictured here by heart, right? Like even for people that love learning, it just takes time to learn every specific note. And there's also a much easier way you can read note without learning every specific note. And that's the easy approach I want to teach you right now. So how I teach notes is that the students should just memorize 4 notes in the beginning. The first note you should memorize is the G. And the G, you can recognize it. It's a little dot, and then you see 2 lines above it, under the staff. So remember, this is the G. This is just something you need to memorize. These 4 notes, there's no specific trick for this. You just need to memorize it. You need to look at the location of the notes and memorize where they are. So this is the G. Here you see the D that is under the last line of the staff. So you see, it's like my teacher said, it's a sock hanging on a, not sure how to say this in English. It's like when you're washing clothing and the sock is hanging there on the washing line, maybe. Yeah. And then here you see the A. And the A, you can see there's 5 spaces between the lines. 1, 2, 3, sorry. There's 5 lines, but there's 4 spaces between the lines. 1, the second space, the third space, and the fourth space. And you can see the A is like in the lower half of the line, like the upper space of the 2 spaces in between the lines. Okay, maybe this makes it just more confusing. Just remember, here's the A. Remember very well the visualization, remember where it is. And then here you can see the E. The E is between the upper 2 lines of the staff. So G, D, A, and E. Try to remember this as good as possible right now, because if you try to memorize it during this lesson, you will already have learned something very, very useful. And if you already know this, that is great. So I think many of you already have learned something like this before and know already how to recognize these notes. Okay. Yeah, okay. Now we go to the next step. So now I can show you how to use this approach by just learning 4 notes and still being able to read all notes. So I'm going to show you an approach you can take if by learning 4 notes and how you can transfer that to knowing all notes on the violin. So now you have these anchor points. That is what we call that in music terminology. You would call this an anchor point. This is the G, the D, the A, and the E are your anchor points. And this is where you will base all the other notes upon if you try to figure out what they are. So the easiest way to explain is just by showing you an example. So here I showed a little piece, and we are going to figure out what these notes are. So the first note you can see over here, where the letter, the number 2 is written above it. Do you see how it is? Over here, it is one of the notes we didn't write down here. So this is not a note we know already, but we know 2 notes that are very close to this note. We know the E and we know the A. So let's have a look at the A. The A would be on this line here. I hope you can see my cursor well enough. So the A would be over here just between these 2 lines. And you can see that this note is 2 steps higher because we have the A. The A would be on this line. Then 1 step higher would be the note that would be on the line above. And then we get the note we want to play. So let's have a look at how we can figure out what this note is. We know that this is the A, and then we know that the note above is the B, because the notes are always going in a logical order. It is always A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that means that the note over here is a C. I will show this to you in this picture over here. So we already know the A. Then we can see that the note above is the B. And the note above is the C, and that is exactly the note that was pictured over here. So if we know the A, we can figure out what this note is just by going back. So you always take the note that is closest to the note that you see pictured on the bar, and then you just count from there. So here you can see this note and you think, okay, the A is the closest note under this note, and then you just count upwards. A, B, C. Of course, you can also count backwards. You can also take the E and then count E. 1 note under the E will be D, and 1 note under the E will be C. But this is a little bit less logical for most of us because we are used to saying the alphabet like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and not like G, F, E, D. Yeah, like that is more difficult. You already noticed it's harder for me. G, F, E, D, C, B, A. So especially in another language, you will get really confused trying to do that. So this is definitely going to make it a little easier. So now I have a question for you guys in the chat. Let's go back to this slide so you can't peek. And right now I want to ask you, what is the last note that is depicted here? Try to think about it before writing it in the chat or before looking at the comments of other people, because I know this is going to be super useful if you're not able to do this yet. So have a look at this note. What is this note? Try to figure it out with just the information you get right now on the screen. The last note that you see depicted on the staff in the piece that you see. What is that last note? So I'm just waiting for everybody commenting to see if everybody understood it. Please don't look at the comments before commenting yourself, because it will be super helpful if you realize that you don't understand it yet, or if I can realize it, it will also really, really help all of you guys, because then I can explain it a little bit more. So right now, all the answers that I see are already correct, but I also imagine the people answering first already found this easiest. So I will take a little bit more time to wait for other comments coming in. I see that there's 26 people watching right now. So there should be more people that are not in the chat right now. So if you want, you can just click on the chat to the right of the video. You can see the chat appearing to the right. And then you can just start typing. There's a little message there. Type here to send a message. So just type your message over there. So take a few more seconds to see if anybody noticed how to make use of the chat. And 3, 2, 1. Yeah, it is great. Everybody wrote a correct answer in the chat. The last note that you see on that line is a D. So that is indeed a D. So let's have a look again how we figured that out. Here we have the A. We already know that the A is in that line. One line above A is B, one line above the B is the C, and one line above the D is the note that you see depicted over here. So in this way, you could actually easily figure out every note that you see in this line, and actually all notes in first position. So that is a simple approach I can really recommend to you, that if you don't know these notes by heart yet that you see right now on the screen, that you do have a look at them and do come back to this lesson to learn them by heart, that you will really, really benefit from it a lot. So let's go to the next step now. There's a little bit, it is a little bit more difficult than I just depicted. That is confusing, right? So you just thought you got it and now it's going to be more difficult. So here you can see all the notes that basically exist. Okay, maybe this is still a simple version, but until you get to a very, very advanced level, this is going to be all the notes you will ever need. And in classical music, for sure. In jazz music, some people are creating very difficult notes, but let's not worry about that yet. So right now you can see all the notes you will ever need in classical music depicted on the piano. So you will see the C, then you will see the note above C, the D, and you can see that all the notes we've learned so far are the white keys. So that were all the white keys. Every line is depicting one white key on the piano, and I'm using the piano to make this a little bit easier to understand, because it is a little bit harder on violin, but we will also get to that in this lesson. So over here you can see all the white keys are one note. Now there are a few extra notes that we didn't talk about yet, and that is the C sharp, the D sharp, the F sharp, the G sharp, and the A sharp, or otherwise all the black keys that you see on the piano weren't in there yet. And for now, don't worry about that at all yet. I just want you to remember one thing from this picture, and that is where the, oh my God, how do you call this in English? Arrow, yes. Okay, where the arrows are pointing. Do you see that all white keys have a black key in between, but there's 2 keys where there's no black key in between. That is the thing that I want you to remember for this specific slide. Just remember that between the E and the F, there's no black key, and between the B and the C, there's also no black key. So I will get to that in a minute, why this is so important. But for now, remember, there's 2 places between the E and the F. Remember, EF and BC. You need to memorize this. This is not logical or something like that. This is just a rule and you need to memorize. So between E and F and between B and C. Got that? E and F, B and C. Remember it for now because it's going to be important later in the lesson to memorize this. Okay. So here you can see picture again between E and F, B and C. I wanted to give a little bit more clarification around what I just showed because it is going to be, it is not completely true that right here, that the black keys are C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp. Actually, every black key on the piano has 2 names. It has the name of the key below it and then added a sharp, or the key above it and added a flat. So this key, it is right of the C. Do you see the white key over here is the C? And the key is also to the left of the D. So you can either call this key half above C, so C sharp, or you can call it half below D, which is called D flat. So flat and sharp is just to say if the key is half below a tone or half above the tone. So over here you can see C sharp, but you could also call it D flat. If that is a little bit confusing, don't worry that much yet, but I wanted to add it because it is more complete. In this way, the information is more complete and you will also need it if you want to learn key signatures correctly. So over here, each key has 2 names. So maybe I want to ask you right now, over here, you see these 3 black keys on this picture. And do you see this black key in the middle? And I want you to say, if you would call it a sharp, which sharp would it be? Would it be F sharp? Would it be D sharp, A sharp? Let me know what it is in the comments. If this would be called ... sharp. Which sharp is it? Okay, I'm just having a look at the comments. In a moment, and I'm trying to hear where I'm lost in right now for a moment. Okay, indeed, it's a G sharp, so everybody got it correct. That is definitely, yeah, that is definitely a G sharp. So we will have a look at it again, because somebody says, can you point it again? So over here, you can see G, this key in the middle. You have 3 keys over here, and the key in the middle is called the G sharp. Why is it called the G sharp? Because G sharp is basically, it just means half step above G. So right now you can see, here's the G, and a half step above the G is the G sharp. So that's why the key is called a G sharp. For instance, an A sharp would mean half step above A, which would be the key over here. Okay. And now I also see Marlene saying whole step or half step. Do you mean you would like to know what the difference is between whole steps and half steps? Because I can explain. Okay. So just waiting for Marlene's comment, and meanwhile I'm just going on. So this key is the G sharp, but what could you also call it? Please let me know, what could you also call this key? If you don't want to call it sharp, but if you want to call the key flat, what would you call it? Please let me know in the comments. Oh, Josie, I'm happy that you're back right now. Yes, this is correct. I see already correct answers coming in. So the key between G and A can both be called G sharp and A flat. A flat would be an alternative way to call that key. So this is a G sharp and an A flat, and that will be the same for every black key. So the first key is a C sharp or a D flat. That will be a D sharp or an E flat, an F sharp or a G flat, a G sharp or an A flat, and that would be an A sharp or a B flat. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So the second step is that if you now you know all the notes, you know all the possible notes there are. And now you need to learn to find the notes on your violin, and probably many of you already got in trouble there if you tried to learn notes on the internet, because so many violinists try to learn notes on the internet, and then they know all the names of the notes, but they are still unsure where to find them on the instrument. So then they still get lost. So right now we need to work on this step. So here you can see the fingerboard of the violin, and I want to show you what the notes look like on the fingerboard. Right now, above here, you can see all the strings. That is the G string over here, the D string, the A string, and the E string. And now I want to ask you in the chat if you still remembered what I told you about 10 minutes ago. About 10 minutes ago, we were talking about that there are some notes where there is a black key in between and some notes where there isn't a black key in between. And I want you to know, I want you to write down in the chat if there, oh, I'm just confused because I looked at the chat already and reading the questions. Okay, I want you to memorize where were these notes. Do you still remember? If you know, please share it in the chat. If you know where there was no black key in between. There were 2 places on the piano where there's no black key in between. Everybody try to think for yourself. Don't look at the chat yet and try to remember. Okay, great. I see many, many great answers coming in. Indeed, it is between the E and the F and the B and the C. And this was so important to remember because it is the same on the violin. It's the same on any instrument, actually. I also see a question coming from Kelvin. So there's no E sharp and B sharp, right? That's not true. But for now, I want you to assume that, because otherwise you're getting really confused and you won't need this information in order to play the violin, because almost no violin pieces are written in keys that are so difficult. So for now, just memorize that there's just 5 black keys or 5 notes that are sharp and flat, called sharp and flat. So right now, I want you to notice on the violin, you can see that this is the same. So do you see, we start on the G string, and then half a step above G is G sharp. Above that is A, half a step above that is A sharp, B, well then we don't get B sharp, but we get C. Do you see how there's no sharp or flat in between? So actually you have to remember that the pattern of notes on the violin is always like this. First it is the normal note, the G, and then the sharp version, so G, and after that comes G sharp. Then you have A, and then the sharp version is A sharp. After that you get B, but because there's no B sharp, or for now we assume that there's no B sharp, there will be a C over here. So there's no other notes between the B and the C. B, and over here you get the C. Okay, let's go on. Half above C is C sharp. Half above C sharp is D. And the D is also the same note as the next string. And I think many of you already know that if you play the fourth finger on the G string, that will be the same note as the open D string. The fourth finger on any string is the same note as the string above. So over here we go on with the D string. Then we have D sharp, E, and after that comes F, no E sharp in between. So I want you to memorize this pattern because in this way you can easily figure out any note on the fingerboard. If you remember the pattern, that it is A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. If you remember this pattern, and it's very easy to remember, you just have to memorize between B and C, there's no sharp. Between E and F, there's no sharp. And all other notes are logical. So just remember the sharps and that in between all the time. So in that way, you can figure out every note on the fingerboard. Here you can see which fingers every note depicts. You can see there's two first fingers. That is the low first finger. Then you have the high first finger or the normal first finger. This is the first finger that all of us learn when we start playing the violin. Then later on, you learn the low first finger. Then over here you see the low second finger and the high second finger. Then here you see the third finger and the high third finger. And here you have the fourth finger. So do you see that each finger has two notes? The first finger has two notes, the second finger has two possibilities, and the third finger has two possibilities. And that's actually logical because that is also why we get in trouble in pieces, because we are not sure which of the two possibilities to use. Sometimes we get confused if you have to use the low first finger or the high first finger, or the low or the second finger. So right now I'm going to look in the chat if everything is clear until now, because that was I think that was everything what I wanted to say about the note introduction. And I want to do a few exercises before we move on to the next part to be really sure that everybody understood that. Okay, so Mary says, now knowing the blank space helps a lot. Something clicked in my head, laughing. So yeah, okay. And Kelvin says that's E flat, just below D sharp. Right, Julia? So right below, oh yes, indeed. You can't see it on the picture because it's a little bit small, but indeed, do you see that in every little circle that I created on this fingerboard, you can see that there's two note names written in it. For instance, the first circle to the left, just above the open G string, is called G sharp, and it's also called A flat. So that is because this note really has two names, and it's depending on the scale which name you use. So yeah, that's a little bit confusing, but you will get the hang of it if you just keep using this system. Yeah. So Kelvin says on the D string, yes, on every string, that is the same. On every string, the D sharp and the E flat will be the same note. It doesn't matter on which string. So Marlene also wants to know the difference between a half step and a whole step. You don't need to know that yet, but I wanted to share it for those who are interested. So often in music, we talk about whole and half steps. And actually a half step is just the space between the first note you see over here and the second note. And a whole step is the space between the first note and two notes above. And why we use that makes sense because sometimes you want to say a whole step above A is B, and a half step above A is A sharp. So a whole step would be A, B, and a half step would be A sharp. So if we cross two dots, if there's one dot in between, it's a whole step. If there's no dots in between, it's a half step. Okay, let's check if we all understood this. Okay, so right now I have a challenge for you guys. I want you to say, what is the note called that is a regular third finger on the G string? So if you would play a normal 3 on the G string, I will make it sound now. for you guys so you can also hear it. What is that note called? And I want you to figure out, not just by trying to memorize what the note is called, but by really using the logic that we have just learned. So we know that this is the open string, the G string. We also know what is a half step above G, a half step above that. So you really have to count all the steps and try to figure out what the third finger is. We are just going to do it together in a minute. So I see already correct answers coming in. Not sure if you already knew what the third finger is or because of what we've just learned. And Marleen says no. Not sure what's no. So, okay, so here we see the third finger. Now I'm going to go through this process with you guys. So, okay, we know that the third finger is on the G string and it's a regular third, it's not a high third finger. That is the information we have. And we know that this is the G string and we know the notes now. Okay, let's check what that note is called. So first we have the G string. That's the open G string is called G. Then the second note is the low first finger. The low first finger will be the G sharp, because after the G comes the G sharp, because there's a black key in between, right? G will be the open string, low first finger will be the G sharp. Then the normal first finger comes. So first low first finger, then the normal first finger. The normal first finger will be an A, because it is G, G sharp. After G sharps comes A. After that, we will get the low second finger. The low second finger will be an A sharp, because above the A comes A sharp. Above the A sharp comes B. So the low second finger will be A sharp, and the normal second finger will be B. And also, we remember that between the B and the C, is there a B sharp? No, there was no black key between the B and the C. That is what we memorized. So after the B comes the C. And after the high second finger comes the third finger, and that will be the C. Okay, let's have a look at that in this picture. It will be a little bit easier to see. I want to show you the process without looking at the picture. So here, G. After that comes G sharp, low first finger. Normal first finger will be A. Low second finger will be A sharp. High second finger will be B. And after that comes C. So that is why the regular third finger is the C. The high third finger would be the C sharp. So I hope that that explained how to find all the notes on the fingerboard. And I'm also happy to see that Marleen now understands what whole and half steps are. So right now, we are going to go to the next phase of our learning journey today. Let's see where we are. Okay, I wanted to do another example, but I feel like everybody got it right now because everybody wrote the correct answer. So let me know if there's anything still unclear, then we will do another example, but otherwise we will move on to the next part. Because, or maybe, you know guys, there's still such a big part. The next part is still going to go so long. This is a much longer presentation than this. So I think maybe we have to do it in the next practice party. So yeah, we have something to digest, and then maybe we do the key signatures in the next party. Maybe that makes more sense. Because now the 3-step key signature check is starting, actually. But maybe it's a little bit too much because the lesson actually takes only 7 more minutes. So what do you think? Do you want to know one more step? Maybe I will have to keep it with that, and we do a little bit more exercises about the notes. And we will just look at some pieces together. and try to figure out which notes are depicted in the pieces. Maybe that makes more sense for the end of this lesson. What do you think? Write it in the chat if that would be helpful for you. And also, this would be the perfect time to ask any questions. If you still have any questions, write it down right now, because I'm here to help you with every question right now. And also, there's a question coming in from Kelvin that asks if this presentation is going to be, if there's a copy of these slides. Yes, there will be a replay available of this lesson at the Academy. In the resources section, you can find all the replays of the past live lessons and of all upcoming live lessons. We will post a replay of every single lesson in that section. So you can always revisit and go back if you get a little confused again about where the notes are and how to figure out which note what is. So definitely have a look at the lesson again if you get confused in the future. I also want to invite all of you to write in the chat right now if you had any insights today, if there's anything that helped you today, if you still have any questions, just write anything you would like to know, you would like to ask, because I'm here to help you. Love to help you right now. Mary says, so to be sure I get it. A half step is a sharp or a flat. A G sharp is the same as an A flat. Okay, that are two questions. So the first question, the G sharp is the same as the A flat. Yes, that is true. The G sharp is always the same as the A flat. Officially, of course, you would call it different in different scales, but it is exactly the same note. And it is just a musical rule that is not for sure, it's not super logical or something like that, that says that sometimes you have to call it an A flat and a G sharp. Basically, you can always say G sharp instead of A flat for every note that sounds like the G sharp, but you will lose some friends, some musical friends in the process, because they will get angry that you don't use the right term, but everybody will understand what you mean. So you could always use the term G sharp if you wanted to. A half step is a sharp or a flat. That's partly true. So a half step is just one step above on the fingerboard. So right now you see all the white dots, and you can see that if you would go from one white dot to the other dot, that would be a half step. That would be one step. But sometimes, mostly actually, that will be from a sharp to a normal note, or from a normal note to a sharp. For instance, between A and A sharp, you will see over here that this is a half step. But sometimes a half step can actually be from B to C. Do you see that here the half step is from B to C? And that's also a half step. So the half step is just about how many steps you take between the notes, so between the white dots that you see over here. So this would be a half step, this would also be a half step. Between E and F, that would also be a half step. So it's not always from a flat to a normal note, or from a normal note to a sharp, or something like that. Does that make sense? I know that can be a little bit confusing to grasp, but yeah, just look at the dots, and yeah, it can be a bit difficult to grasp, because between B and C there's no sharp, and between E and F, and that can be confusing for sure. Okay. So right now I see Kelvin says you would like to print them, the keyboard slides and this one. So, oh yes, of course, I can make the slides available of two. I can just also give you the whole slides. The whole presentation will include a little bit more than that. Maybe I can take it out. And we will continue this probably in the next practice party. I will explain everything about the key signatures and how you can use all this information to read key signatures. So Anand says, nice presentation, Julia. Even though I've read notes in over 30 years, it's helpful to see the charts for fingerings on violin. So thank you so much. I'm really happy that you got something out of it, even though you've been playing for such a long time. So I was afraid maybe this is a little bit too easy for some people, but it makes sense. Yeah, for me, it also is always helpful to have a look at it again and to understand it again. Because on violin, it is definitely much more difficult than on piano, for instance, where everything is laid out so perfectly. It is a very good overview, and on violin, it can be confusing sometimes. So yeah, great. Okay, Mary also got the half step and the whole steps. So I'm really happy that all of this, it seems that many of you said that it was really helpful and that you have learned something today. So I'm really happy about this. And yeah, I think we will just continue this next month probably. There won't be live lessons in the next 2 weeks because there will be a live practice party next week where you can definitely join. It will be a members meetup where you can just meet up with other members and talk. It will be like a live Skype chat room, so everybody can talk with each other and give each other advice and help each other out. I won't be there. It won't be an official lesson, but it is just a place to all encourage each other, to help each other practicing, because there's so many members that have a lot of knowledge already, and many of you can help each other. And this initiative was from the members, from some of you too, wanted this practice room. So definitely come to that practice room. After that, we don't have a lesson during Christmas because it is going to be a bit busy for most of us, and I'm going to the Netherlands, Sasha is going to his family, so we are a little bit less active in that time. But in January we will get started with a lot of fun new lessons. Of course, we want to start the year with a lot of violin playing and to start really great fresh with a lot of practice. So then we will also continue and talk about the key signatures. So definitely make sure to come to the next practice party, because there we will continue this and I will teach you how to read key signatures. What I can show you a little preview of what we will work on. Oh, we will work on this and how to make sense of all this. So if this looks confusing to you in any way, definitely join us that day. So now I'm going to show myself again also. And going away from the presentation. Yes, okay. Oh, somebody says, apparently there was something wrong with the chat. My answers arrived late. Oh, I'm sorry that your answers arrived late. I'm so happy that even though many people had music theory, they were still getting something out of this. So yeah, and somebody also, oh, Mary says, I'm falling over that image with the notes. So it will be a great idea to come to a lesson. I think you will really benefit from it and get less intimidated with the circle of fifths, because it can look so intimidating when you just get started to see all these notes and all these signs. So yeah, so definitely come to our live practice party next week. Also join definitely in January all our new live lessons. I also wish all of you Merry Christmas, a really great Christmas time with your families. And I also hope everybody is motivated to play maybe a tune for Christmas at their family. I'm definitely going to play a tune for my family, I think. So let me know if you're going to do that. And we will keep in contact all the time on the Facebook group, so you can share anything over there, or if you have any more questions about this during the rest of the day, just send me a message and I will help you out. So yeah, also, of course, if you don't know it yet, Cloud, one of our members that is also in the chat right now, he released a program for all of us. He was so generous to share the program with all of us. It's a new program to check your pitch while you're practicing without a teacher. So it's kind of a live teacher that is checking all the time if you're playing in tune. If you want to have a look at it, definitely have a look in the resources section. There you can find the application. It's called In Tune. And I see many people saying happy holidays to everybody, Merry Christmas. So yeah, and thank you so much. Cloud is also coming in. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining this lesson. It's a blessing to be able to teach all of you, and that you're also motivated and showing up during the lessons. Even though I'm talking about music theory for 1 hour, everybody is still there. So I'm so grateful that all of you are interested enough to stick with me during maybe this more boring part of violin playing, but not less important, in order to learn to play beautifully. And I really look forward to keep in contact, and yeah, we will see each other around. So goodbye, everybody. Sasha, do you also want to say goodbye? Sasha has been helping behind the scenes all the time with the chat and creating, making sure everything is working out and that you guys can hear me during the lesson. So you will come and say goodbye too. Good. Oh, that's okay.
Yeah,
Goodbye, everybody. See you.
See you.